what you want.
So right now I am in a Corvette C6 with an LS2. It has 400 horsepower and 400 foot-pounds of torque. And so far I feel super empowered driving this thing. I feel like such a badass. This car has almost 100,000 miles on it, and my friend Ben got it for a steal. He couldn't resist, and you would never guess this thing has 100,000 miles on it. It's an awesome condition. The interior, it has a few things worn out, but the Corvettes aren't really famous for their interior anyway. It's famous for the power plant that's up front. Now, I'm just gonna get this right out of the way and say, comparing this to my Mustang, I'm not gonna do it because I think that's stupid. Comparing a Corvette to a Mustang, in my opinion, is really stupid because they're two completely different animals, and a Mustang should be compared more to a Camaro SS. That's more of their muscle car-ish era. This is a sports car. This is a two-seater fast sports car. And the Corvette C7 anymore, not that this is a C7, but the C7's a supercar. If not, these are almost supercars. So basically, this is America's bad to the bone car that came out of Detroit and can keep up with everything else around the world, but for much cheaper prices. The one thing you'll notice as soon as you get into this car and you start driving is that it's wide. And it's not so much it's like negative, it's just something you have to get used to. The owner, Ben, who drove all the way from Norfolk to let me drive this car, which is awesome, by the way, he's awesome. He let me know that the fender flare on the left is kind of how you arrange yourself on the road. If you're on a double yellow line, that's where you need to kind of aim, is in the center, because earlier I was driving way to the right and it was not good. The car also has this awesome heads-up display that at first my ADD self found it a little distracting, but over time I'm getting used to it, and thankfully it saved me when I went past a cop earlier. I looked down at it and I was doing just fine. Alright, so we're in second right now. Let me get over this blind hill, because don't accelerate up blind hills, because that's a bad idea. And let's ease into it a little bit. Okay, now I see why people like these cars. Let's get in it again, I have to. Jeez, it pulls. Thing is up, and these brakes are awesome. This thing is sweet, I like it. I have driven a C5 Corvette. Unfortunately, it was automatic, and it had a tan interior, and it was bright red, which made me feel slightly homophobic. It still had the same kind of wide vibe to it, but remember, that had the LS1 in it, which is, of course, a legendary motor, but it had nowhere near the kind of kick in the seat that this does. It's pretty awesome, and that corner that you see up ahead that you think is kind of far away, it's not so far away. The car has two modes. One is like the tour mode with like magnetic ride control and that Chevy witchcraft that they have on a lot of their newer cars, which is fantastic. But then I'm in competitive mode right now. So let's get on this and see how it does. And I'm gonna turn and let's get on it. 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, that was sweet. Kind of, when you first get on it, that was a first gear pull, by the way, and it hooked and went. It didn't spin like hardly at all, maybe a little bit of wiggle, but it wasn't bad at all. But the low end torque of the LS motor kicks you in the butt, like as soon as you get on it. But then once it starts pulling, you're like, okay, I got this. You just kind of lean back and let it go, and it's not that bad. It's a little different from how I'm not comparing my Mustang, but the motor, it's a little different from the motor. The motor of my Mustang, the power band is more up top. As for the shifter, going from first to second is not a problem, except if you're cruising around town. If you're cruising and you don't rev out the first gear high enough, the car has this little bypass in it that if you're not going, if you're not getting on it, it goes into fourth automatically. It kind of makes you go into fourth. And at first I was a little thrown off about it because my RPMs just dropped out of nowhere. And I can't really say, oh, I gotta move her to the left. I can't really say that I'm a fan of it. I'm not really digging it, but I can see where it is useful if you're trying to save gas. The clutch is actually not bad at all. I have bogged a few times, just like every other review. You know, my first few times around town, I bog it just to get used to where the engagement point is. But when it comes to firmness, it's super easy. I've driven a lot of cars lately, as you guys know, and this clutch surprisingly is easy to drive. It's you just put it down and just ease into it, just like that. The engagement point's nice and up high, so you have a little bit of play in it, but not too much to where you're kind of guessing, if that makes sense. Another good thing about this is that it has not stock exhaust. Corvettes with stock exhaust are some of the quietest cars you could buy, which is highly ironic. I understand that they're trying to appease the masses, but if you're buying a car like this, don't you want it to scream, or not scream, but don't you want somebody to know that you're something not to be messed with? This has Corsa Extremes on it, so the message is pretty clear. All right, let's go around this little bend real quick. Ease into it, go around here. Ooh, nice and flat. And, oh, traffic. But that was very good. All right, let's give it another little pull. We'll do a third gear roll on. Woo. See, it accelerates hard. I can't argue about that, but I feel completely in control. I don't ever feel scared, if that makes sense. And this is a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. And let's go around this bend. And I don't care. Woo! And next bend. Ease into it, go around, coast, and go. That's nice. The low-end torque of this LS just throws you out of the corner. It's not very gradual, it just, boom, it hits you. All right, so let's do a little roll on. We're gonna launch it, we're just gonna roll into it. And up I'll go, okay. Thing moves. And that independent rear suspension soaked in every single one of those bumps like it was nothing. Now I know why they call it a bang for your buck car. Even though it's brand new, these cars are, you know, above the middle class for sure, absolutely. I can see why a lot of people wait and then they get one. I mean, it's for 20 grand. This car was 20 grand for 100,000 miles. I don't care who you are. If you take care of these motors, modern cars, most of the time, they'll run forever as long as you take care of it. And I know this LS motors are bulletproof. That's why you see them swapped in everything. You go to drift events and I guarantee you will not find a 240 without an LS motor. Or you will not find whatever with an LS motor, because it's mainstream now. As hipster as that says, it's mainstream to put an LS in something because they're reliable and they make power. And there's the one thing, which isn't a big deal, it's okay, but the visibility. I'm a little dude, obviously, but backing up, especially in reverse, it is kind of difficult to see out the back. To know the kind of scale of the car, if that makes sense, how big it is, and because it's a big car, but it doesn't feel like a big car, if that makes sense. It's very nimble, you know, like this, but parking it, I think it would take me a few weeks basically to get used to parking it. The entire time on the gauge cluster it says competitive driving mode, and the entire time I read that I'm like, I can take on anything. The way you sit in this car, even though it is wide and even though you're right in front of one of the fender flares, the driving position is good. It's very good. It's very, you feel almost centered, if that makes sense. And I'm gonna go now. Also, if you guys didn't notice, this is a target top, and it's actually a big selling point of the Corvette. A ton of people will not go to the above Corvettes because you can't take the roof off. Now, would that bother me? Not really, but I can see why. I mean, I owned a convertible. Open air is definitely a cool experience. And with the roof off, these cars actually do look pretty cool. Not that, I can't really say I like the convertible, but with the Targa and you have this big kind of flare back here and the roof is kind of hanging up, like kind of old school looking, I love how it looks. So I'm sitting at a stoplight, and you definitely know this car is special because you're in it, and a lot of people hate on the Corvette. I can understand why, because of all the numbers and the facts and the plastics in the interior and all the mumbo jumbo that's on paper. But when you look at one, and yeah, they're everywhere too, but there's a reason they're everywhere. It's a good car, and it looks magnificent. I mean, especially the C6. When the C6 first came out, I remember I was 15 at the time, and I was in awe. Like, I liked the C5, but when the C6 came out, I was like, that car looks like a supercar, and I think it looks awesome. Anyways, guys, I would like to thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you had fun, because I sure did. This is my first experience in a C6 Corvette, and I will never forget it. I love this car. Am I unbiased against other cars? No. But this car is awesome, and you should give it a chance if you've never been in one. So I'd like to thank Ben for driving all the way from Norfolk to let me drive this. I actually met him at Cars and Kids not too long ago. But thank you so much for letting me drive this. It's been a pleasure. Anyways, guys, I'll see you next time.